In this video, I want to talk about 5 change myths that sabotage goals. Myth: more is better. Most people try to take on goals that are just too big. There are 2 problems with this approach. 1, it makes the actual process of change incredibly difficult because you're trying to change so much. And 2, even if you do succeed, sustaining the change is going to be incredibly difficult. Let's look at New Year's resolutions. The failure rate is at 72%. Not that any of us know that from personal experience. John Norcross, a professor of psychology, has studied New Year's resolutions. And what he's identified as the main culprit in why people's resolutions fail is that they try to take on too much at once. In his book, The Resolution Solution, his number 1 tip is try to change less. If you want tips on how to actually implement how to change less at one time, but more overall, you can check out some of my habit videos, or really most other videos on the channel. It is one of my favorite strategies. Myth: you just need to be more motivated. Have you ever wanted to do something, but you couldn't get yourself to do it? Psychologists call this the intention-behavior gap. A meta-analysis of studies on this intention-behavior gap, specifically with exercise, found that intentions didn't translate to behavior 46% of the time. So that means your desire to do something can only be counted on being effective at most half the time. And you don't get to pick which half it kicks in. So despite what some superhuman self-help gurus preach, don't try to use motivation as your fuel. And if you've seen my other videos, you know that motivation in us ADD-ers is a big issue. Instead, focus on changing through taking small actions or building habits. In one of my favorite studies, researchers surveyed about 2,400 people about their intention to donate blood in the next 6 or 12 months. 12 months later, they looked at who had actually given blood. And what they found was that past donation experience was a much stronger predictor of behavior than intention. So there were people who wanted to donate but didn't, but also hadn't really done that action much in their life. And then there were other people who said, I have no intention to donate. I don't want to. And yet they ended up donating blood in those past 12 months because our past behavior drives a lot of our future actions. So that sufficiently covers the myth that you need to be more motivated. Myth: you just have to change your mindset. In Willpower Doesn't Work, Dr. Benjamin Hardy really shatters this myth. While changing your mindset can be helpful, successful change really relies on our environment. The reason is that our social environment influences us subconsciously, and our physical environment is full of triggers that remind us of memories or trigger habits, and so on. These are the reasons that parents care who their kids' friends are. This is why addiction treatments tell addicts that they can't hang out in the same environments that they used to. When you adjust the environment for success, all of a sudden behavior changes with no change in mindset. For example, a team of researchers was trying to increase fruit consumption in school cafeterias. The mindset and motivation approaches that we've talked about in the last 2 myths would try to influence the kids to want to eat more fruit and tell them the benefits and the downsides of the other fruit. Instead, these researchers got fruit consumption to go up by simply repositioning where the fruit was located in the cafeteria and adding more attractive labels. With no mindset change on the part of the children, behavior changed. And as we saw in the blood donor example, when our behavior starts to change, that becomes a predictor of our future behavior more than our intention or motivation. Myth: difficulty is a bad sign. Most people think that when they encounter difficulty on a goal, that it's a sign that something might be wrong. Maybe their approach is wrong, or maybe they just don't really want it or need it. In reality, difficulty is actually just part of the change process. So if you're encountering it, it's actually a very good sign. To understand why difficulty is built into the change process, let's look at the learning cycle, developed by Noel Birch in the 1970s. So in this diagram, tying your shoes, driving a car, or brushing your teeth would all be skills that are in the unconsciously competent category. This means that you're competent, but you're not conscious of what you're doing, meaning it just happens easily and naturally. However, the two stages, conscious incompetence and conscious competence, are difficult. So here's how it works. You start at unconscious incompetence, where you don't even know that there's something you don't know. So then you move to the next phase, conscious incompetence, when you realize that there's something that you want to improve. So let's say you realize that you're not exercising enough and you want to improve in that area, or you want to learn how to film YouTube videos, or you're trying to get better at sales, or you want to quit playing video games. Here, you're consciously aware that there's something that you want to improve, but you're not particularly good at it, hence the incompetence part. As you get better at the thing that you want to improve, you become consciously competent. And finally, you get to the holy grail, which is unconscious competence, where it's just automatic. It's like tying your shoes or driving, although I swear some people still don't know how to drive a car. But the only way to get to this holy grail place where everything just happens automatically at a high level, you have to go through those previous stages of conscious incompetence and conscious competence. And these stages are difficult. You put in all this concentrated mental effort and all this time to produce meh results. The truth is that slow, uncomfortable, effortful work is a necessary part on the path to mastery. And knowing this is super powerful. New behaviors and skills are supposed to feel awkward at first. You're supposed to be trying really hard and not getting very impressive results. Now that you know that this isn't a flaw in you or the process, but it's part of the process, when you hit this difficulty in the future, you'll know that that's actually a sign of progress and you'll be able to push through that, whereas most people hit the difficulty and quit. So that covers the myth that difficulty is a bad sign. The last myth, you should focus on the outcome and benefits. There's a problem with focusing on the outcome and benefits when you're starting to change. Problem is that the outcome and the benefits lag behind, often significantly, the actions that you take. So what that means is that you could meditate regularly for weeks, or you could do a whole new fitness or diet plan for weeks, or work every week on improving a professional skill and then see very little benefit in that same time period. So while you're religiously focusing day after day, week after week on this very difficult goal, you then look at the results you're getting and they kind of suck. It's not that you're not getting results, it's that there's a lag period between when you take an action and when you get results from it. For certain fitness and health goals, it may only be a couple weeks. For other personal improvement like meditation or visualization, it could be months. And for career and business success, it's often months, if not years. So all that's to say that if we try to focus on the outcome and the benefits, we're going to get deflated. It is highly unmotivating. So what do we do instead? We set what psychologists call a process goal, or what James Clear in Atomic Habits refers to as a system. A system or a process goal is basically a goal to do the weekly actions that will get you to the eventual result. So instead of focusing on a goal, say to run a sub 4-hour marathon 5 months from now, a process goal version of that would be to execute your training plan every single week. Executing the training plan is what's going to get you to the outcome of running the sub 4-hour marathon. So instead, you just focus on executing the training plan as your goal. And you can do all those things that you do with goals, like set up incentives for yourself and set up an accountability system. But this makes achieving the goal something within your control that you can track progress towards. Now, an outcome focus isn't bad later in the process, but it can be very demotivating and ineffective at the start of a goal. In fact, some studies have found that starting with a process goal and then shifting to an outcome goal as the goal attainment gets closer is the most effective strategy versus just doing a process or system approach or just doing an outcome focused approach. So those are the 5 change myths that sabotage goals. Does that match up with your experience? Can you see places where you've fallen victim to some of these? Do you have other tips to share? I'd be interested to hear, so let me and the other viewers know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the content, please like the video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. I have a new series coming out called ADD IRL, where I'll actually be showing kind of behind the scenes in my own personal life, how I execute a lot of these strategies that I share on this channel. So subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss those. And I will look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye, focus friends.